everyone in those schools. Our educators have exhausted themselves and are doing all they can for their students and taking care of their own families. Our educators have been working hard and have provided quality educational opportunities for our students. It hasn't been a perfect situation for anyone. Students, educators, and parents are all frustrated. We all want students back in our schools full time. We are all in the uncharted territory of a pandemic and managing as best we can. But with the pandemic raging in our state at levels not seen before, it appears that in many areas of the state, those two things, a full 5-day in-person learning and safety, cannot happen at the same time. After the governor's announcement of full-time in-person learning just before the new year, most educators and state residents were caught off guard. Our members immediately began expressing concern for their safety and the safety of their students and families. Early last week, in an effort to gauge the sentiment of our members, we emailed them a survey to gather their opinions about the governor's statement. We received nearly 3,500 responses, and we wanted to share some of those responses with you. Our first question was simply asking them to rank on a scale of 1 to 10 how fearful they were to return to full-time in-person learning, with 1 being the least fearful and 10 being the most. Here are their responses. You can see that there was a variety of responses at each level. While some people felt little fear in returning at 1%, 33% of those surveyed marked number 10, which was the most fearful of those surveyed. And over 64% of those surveyed responded with an 8 or higher on that question. We then restated the question by asking them, are you comfortable having students in person 5 days a week in your classroom or at your work site? And 85% of those responding said no. They were not comfortable with students in person 5 days a week. We then delved a little deeper with those individuals who responded with a no in an attempt to find out why they were uncomfortable. And they responded with the following. The 2 biggest reasons given as to why they were uncomfortable with the full-time in-person learning was first, at 48%, there was too high incidence of COVID in my county for it to be safe. And second was not enough social distancing can occur at my work site with all students present, which was at 38%. Now clearly the combination of a high infection rates added to the inability to social distance sets up the unsafe environments that leads to COVID-19 spreading. And since they feel unsafe returning to 5-day in-person learning, we asked them what it would take for them to feel safe with in-person learning. The top answer at 40% was getting school employees fully vaccinated, and the second choice at 30% was to move to a hybrid blended learning schedule in order to reduce the number of students and to allow for social distancing in their schools. Now, throughout this pandemic, most school employees have gone the extra mile in order to be safe and to keep the families safe. In this time of extraordinarily high infection and transmission rates of the virus in our state, our employees simply want to be able to continue with those safe practices in the workplace. While they are concerned about their students and want them back in class, they can't ignore their fears and concerns over their own safety and the safety of their families. They feel it is simply too early to return without adequate safeguards in place to allow for social distancing. Now, we commend the State Board of Education and President Miller Hall for their recognition that the virus is not under control, and it is not the time to be eliminating safeguards that have been put in place for the safety of our students and our school employees. Their statement regarding blending learning plans to provide more social distancing and the importance of getting employees vaccinated before full-time in-person learning occurs mirrors the opinions of our members. We also commend the governor for prioritizing educational employees in the vaccine rollout. The limited doses of vaccines are not his fault, and we know the Department of Education and the National Guard are working to get the vaccine doses out to the county school employees. Vaccinating employees is a key component to safety in buildings and allowing for the full-time return of our students. The learning conditions and circumstances in our counties are different. The infection rates, size of classes, and space available in our classrooms will vary from county to county. No one knows these situations better than the officials in each county. Those individuals have the latitude to make decisions that are best for their schools, their students, and their educators. This is a pandemic, and a one-size-fits-all approach to such an important issue as the health and safety of those working and learning in our school systems simply does not work. Our members are fearful and concerned for their safety and the safety of their students. We've heard from many parents and community members who are also concerned about a full-time return to school at this time. There are alternatives to a 5-day in-person schedule, and at this time, those alternatives should be used by the county boards of education. We all want to return to a normal school routine and in-person learning, but only when it is safe. At this time, I'll entertain any questions you may have, and Rachel is controlling all the board over there, and she will unmute and handle the questions. Okay, Steve?
Hold on a second. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Steve Adams, Ogden Newspapers here. The governor talked yesterday about changing the metrics, particularly in regards to orange and red. It would appear
Steve, hold on just a minute.
We're having some sound. Can you
go?
Here. Yeah, do it from there.
Mute ours and do.
Oh, raise your hand if you can hear me.
Okay. There you go. Now go.
Now go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the governor talked yesterday about changing the metrics in regards to the orange category on the maps. Obviously, he's getting a lot of pushback from some parents, coaches, student athletes to try to allow circumstance for schools to be able to be open. But it would also seem that counties are kind of taking their cues, talking to teachers and going to blended models like you're talking about. Do you all think this is an effort by the governor's office and the governor himself to kind of be able to shift blame? So when schools close and you can't have school athletics starting March 1st, that, you know, he can point, well, they won't let us open versus, you know, having protests on the west end of the Capitol entrance waiting for the governor. Do you think it's a deflection?
You know, Steve,
Hold on, unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes, Steve, we've said from the beginning, can you hear me now? We've said from the beginning, our locals, boards of education and superintendents are the ones who are best situated to make decisions about their schools. We saw that in August with Montague County and the way they wanted to do the WVU students. And we saw it again in November and December when counties who were yellow and gold decided to go full remote. I think that it's important that the counties make decisions, and they're working with not only their health department and their educators, but they would be working with their coaches and everyone else to decide what's the best for bringing the kids back. I think we've started the ball rolling with the vaccinations, and let's get through those, and then we can really talk more about the sports and everything else. Brandon? Brent?
Brad has his hand up.
Brad, okay. Brad and then Brandon.
Perfect. Hi, Dale. Hi, everyone. You know, I myself am kind of confused because decision-making seems to be happening at so many levels. And I wonder if there's public confusion. The governor has talked about 5 days a week. It appears that the state school board tomorrow is ready to seriously consider allowing for hybrid models. And then you see counties like Marion and last night, Lewis and Preston establishing their own plans. Who should the public listen to for consistency? Should they just be listening to those at the local level?
Well, we have 55 school districts, and those 55 know what's best for their counties and their students and their employees. So yeah, I would contend that the county is the one that they need to be listened to. They elected their school boards to provide a safe, quality education for their students, and they know their county better than anyone else. So I would contend that that's indeed who they should listen to. Brendan.
Yeah, hello. Today, the Trump administration, the White House task force, announced that they're going to be backing what's essentially considered the Biden plan in this, which is putting every dose of vaccine that's available right now out there to start being given, and then the second doses come behind it. Do you support that effort to get as many people their first vaccine as possible? And I'm not sure if your survey went into this at all, but was it differentiated between people having their first vaccine and then feeling comfortable to go back, or being fully vaccinated?
Yeah, Brandon, I really am not the health expert. If you want an educational question, we would be the people to ask, but I haven't heard that information. And I think what the important thing is to get as many people vaccinated as want to be vaccinated, and then follow the CDC guidelines and the recommendations of the health officials on when the second vaccine needs to be administered and everything like that. So I really couldn't comment more on that.
Dale, it seems like the state school board may tomorrow ban the ability for counties to have remote only learning. For instance, by saying that, you just can't, counties, you can go blended, but you just can't completely stay on remote learning anymore. You can't, for the rest of the school year, have any weeks where you're just on remote learning. What is your union's response to that, and what are your feelings on that?
Well, I think that we have followed the guidelines of the MAP for 4 months. And for 4 months, we've said if you're in the orange or the red, it's not safe to return to school. I don't think you can suddenly say, oh no, we're kidding. It's safe to return. And not only safe to return on some type of model, but to have all the kids there. I think the counties are the one, in working with their local health departments, that need to make that decision. And if indeed, after those discussions with their employees, the health department, and the county administration, they say that it's not safe to return to school, we want to do remote, they should be allowed to do remote. I don't think we're going to need to be remote the rest of the school year, particularly when we get people vaccinated and everything. But there are some counties who feel that it's safe to go back, and there are some counties where it may not be safe, and that should be a local decision. It shouldn't be a decision that the state department or anyone else makes for them. There should be guidelines, but the county should have the final say, and even going beyond what the State Department has said. And we've seen that play out all these 4 months. Other questions?
I'll go if I can. This will be my second. I don't want to be greedy, but you mentioned
we allow more than one question.
That is crazy talk. That is crazy.
Okay.
Never mind. I abdicate my right.
Then turn Brad off. Don't let him ask his second question.
No, but really, you mentioned the map there, and the map obviously has undergone many changes, tweaks we call them. And yesterday, the governor hinted at another one to expand. I took it to expand the orange category and make the red category a higher hurdle to get to. Despite all the map criticism, have you and others found it helpful to at least have one to go by?
You know, Brad, as you know, we went to court about the manipulation of the map. And while we think there should be guidelines for a map to give you some guidelines, constant manipulating the map to be able to do what you want and to say, well, we're going to change this to make it easier to do our kids back full time. It's just not safe and it's the wrong thing to do in our opinion. We believe there should be guidelines, and that's why we would follow either the Harvard map or the DHHR map and things like that. The health officials are the one who should decide if it's safe and what those parameters are. To manipulate it and constantly manipulate it is just the wrong thing to do. And people have already gotten used to the map, and so it makes it effective, and that's why we believe that. But don't keep playing with it just to get to do the things that you want to do.
And one more from me on the map issue. You know, your lawsuit sought, if I recall it correctly, among several things. One of the things it sought was to force the state to actually follow Harvard's map, which was the inspiration for the state map. And then, of course, West Virginia, you know, loosened up the regulations far below what Harvard had originally recommended. But on that same website that the Harvard map is still up there, you know, some of the same researchers that helped develop that map issued new guidance, and they said, quote, you know, since July, our scientific understanding of COVID has increased significantly, as has our understanding of degrees of risk in school. And we can now recommend that schools be open even at the very high levels of spread we are now seeing, provided that they strictly implement strategies of infection control. So they've gone away from the whole idea of using, you know, a map to be the indicator of whether schools should close, or be the sole indicator. What do you say to that? It seems like Harvard, or the Harvard Global Health Institute, it seems like they've abandoned the map that they created. So how can you guys still back the idea of using a map?
Well, what we're saying is, and I think you said it in your question, that you have to be able to follow the guidelines and controls. One of those is you have to be able to social distance. And you're not able to social distance in our classrooms if you have 25 third graders in a class in a small classroom, or 30 seventh graders in a class, or 70 students, middle school students in a phys ed class. That's part of this, and the map to me just gives you the guidelines. It tells you what the infection rates and those types of things are. But then you have to take into account all the other factors like social distancing and being able to have the 6 feet apart and with the mask and everything else. So all of this is part of our health officials giving us the safest recommendations, and the map is just simply a part of that. There are some, and we've seen it throughout the first 4 months, there are some times when it is safe to have some return to school, in-person learning. But in doing that, we've been effective when we've had small numbers in and did the social distancing and that type of issue.
Do you see any problems with we expect the governor to sign tomorrow, reopening schools for next week? Do you expect any teachers to say, I'm not going back, or I want to strike, coming out of the possibility of having to go back?
You know, as I said earlier today, I'm an old coach, and we come up with a game plan, and we discuss our game plan internally, and our members we're a very member-driven organization, Our members are the one who tell us the direction that we're going to go, but those are internal discussions. And there are some locals that may be to the point where they don't feel it's safe to go back. We're going to support our members, we're going to support our locals, and we're going to work with them on a variety of things if they feel that that's what they want to do. But those are internal things, and I'm not going to reveal all the things that may happen until we see exactly what the state board and everyone says. Last question.
Looking ahead to tomorrow, obviously, by having this briefing today, you're trying to convey to the public where your membership stands, but will there be some similar way of conveying these messages, these findings to state board members tomorrow?
Yes, as you know, the state board is doing a virtual meeting tomorrow. And again, that's kind of ironic that we want all our students to be back, but we continue to do everything virtually. But we will be submitting comments to the state board. We have to do it by 3 o'clock today. And those comments will be submitted to the state board. Many of our leaders and educators across the state are submitting comments to the state board as we speak. We've had those discussions with our leaders in a conference call last night. They are having their voices heard. This is not just the leadership saying this is what we want to do. It's our members. It's the rank and file members who are insisting that their voices be heard. And that, to me, that's important. All right. I want to thank you all for coming on, and if everybody's good, thank you for being a part of our virtual news conference. I look forward to the day when things can get back to somewhat normal and I can see all of you in person. So thank you.
Thank you.